This video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. This video is brought to you by First Detachment Nutrition, battle-tested nutrition, expert formulated supplements. Use code AB10 at checkout for 10% off. Hey guys, Big Paul here today, and we are going to talk about carb cycling for fat loss. Get a lot of people asking me about carb cycling. I haven't really done a lot of videos about it. Main reason is people always argue with me about it and don't believe it works. So it frustrates me when people go down that path. But I'm proof. I mean, you guys saw the condition I got into for my show. But what if I told you that you could eat Captain Crunch and gummy bears all the way up till the week of the show and be fucking ripped? I tested out on the DEXA scan a week. This was a week before my show, so I might even been even leaner at the show at 4.7%. And I was literally eating gummy bears, Captain Crunch, apple pie filling right up until the last week of the show. And so this is something that I see guys starving themselves and they come in flat. They look fucking awful on stage. That's just unnecessary. I'm going to go through the whole process today and talk to you about how carb cycling works. Before I do that, I do want to thank my sponsor, First Detachment Nutrition. If you guys would check them out, I have discount code AB10 over there. I use all their products. They have some really cool stuff. Suppressor is their berberine and insulin disposal or glucose disposal product that I use when I'm doing carb cycling. All right, guys, we're going to get into it in just 1 second. All right, so people don't believe me when I tell them that I'm eating gummy bears and having cheat meals and stuff right up until the show. So with carb cycling, you're manipulating the system. You're tricking your body into how nutrients are partitioned. You're leveraging that to your advantage, and I'm going to go into it. Talk about how that works. But first, we kind of have to back up and understand how physics work and how calories are stored in the body and how we go about manipulating that system intelligently, more so than just a generic diet does. So the first law of thermodynamics, I haven't misspelled here, thermodynamics, but thermodynamics is a fundamental law of physics that says energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It's only transferred. And essentially, this is what calories in, calories out is. And people love to fight and argue about calories in and calories out, but it is a fundamental law of science and cannot be violated. And I think where people get themselves twisted up in the knot saying, well, it's not real, and all this other stuff plays a factor into it, is the body is a very complex machine, and it stores energy in multiple different ways. So think about this with a closed energy system like the body is, how thermodynamics works. Think of it as the body as a car. You have energy stored in the gas tank. The body has multiple ways of storing energy. The gas is burned, which fires the engine, which turns the wheel on the car, and the energy is transferred from the gas to the wheel. Now, you can't, you can't trick the car into changing the amount of gas that's burned. You push the gas pedal down harder, it burns harder, i.e. raising your metabolism, things like that. So the body works the same way as a car engine. And you can't violate those laws of physics. So understanding how the body stores energy and how you can manipulate that is kind of interesting, and this is where carb cycling comes into play. You have your base metabolism, which is how many calories you're just burning sitting around doing nothing. And we can raise that metabolism through pharmacology. We can raise that metabolism through exercise. We can raise that metabolism through NEAT, basically just doing things around the house. Working at a standing desk, for example, you might burn another 100 or 200 calories or whatever. I'm just making up numbers per day. Washing the dishes, folding the laundry, things like that burn calories. Certain foods have a thermic effect to them as well, where it takes calories to process those foods. Hormone manipulation. You can manipulate hormones to raise and lower metabolism. Thermogenic drugs as well, fat burners, clenbuterol, things like that. So the body stores calories in three primary ways. It stores calories. In everybody's familiar with fat storage, which is where your body puts calories into body fat. Visceral fat, subcutaneous fat. That's the one that we're most familiar with and that people think about when they're burning calories. But the body also stores calories and glycogen in both the muscle and the liver, which is essentially stored carbohydrates for readily available fuel use. And your body likes to burn that glycogen first before it burns store fat. Muscle tissue is essentially stored calories as well. And your body can burn muscle tissue for calories as well too. So obviously we don't want to burn muscle tissue. That is the thing that we do not want to burn. And to burn fat or to burn off stored calories in general, we must burn more calories than we consume. This is the whole calories in, calories out thing. So the body definitely does not like to burn fat first. As I mentioned, it goes after, usually glycogen is the first thing in glucose in the bloodstream. It'll burn up first. Muscle tissue is really not a necessary thing for survival. So the body, if it senses that it's in a state of starvation, it doesn't want to hang on to that muscle tissue. So you have to force it to hang on to that muscle tissue. And a lot of times we do that in bodybuilding through pharmacology and through weight training and forcing the body to say, well, I've got to lift this big rock up off my chest every day. So I need that for survival. So I probably shouldn't get rid of that muscle tissue. But muscle is unnecessary for survival. So we have to really trick and manipulate the body to maintain that muscle tissue. And then fat, but the body likes to let go of fat last, really. So you really have to manipulate things to make the body burn fat, retain muscle tissue, and retain glycogen. And herein lies the problem with most diets. Most diets, you don't actually burn that much fat, and you'll see it. I call it the skinny fat conundrum. I see people all the time go on, and I don't want to call out specific diets so much, but you'll see it like I see it with the keto people. I lost 20 pounds in 3 weeks. You didn't lose 20 pounds of fat in 3 weeks. It's just impossible. I mean, we're talking about 70,000 calories worth of fat that you would have to metabolize. It's mostly water weight, and it's from the glycogen pulls water into the muscle as well. So when you're dumping glycogen, you're depleting all your carbohydrates from your body. You're dumping glycogen from the liver and from the muscle, and that's what first thing that happens when you do keto is you completely deplete everything. So you lose all that glycogen, you lose all the water that's retained with that glycogen. So that's why you'll see guys that do keto diets in bodybuilding and they get very, very flat looking. And the guys that promote keto diets for contest prep, they're not really keto diets truly, because you'll see they'll have these loading days. They'll do a loading day on the weekend, which is essentially the same as a high day in carb cycling. They're filling their glycogen back up. So it's not a true keto diet. If they ran keto the entire time through prep, they would be very flat. They would have no glycogen or very little glycogen in the muscle. They'd have a very flat, stringy look. And you see it with keto guys. You'll see a lot of CrossFitters are keto guys, and they're muscular, but they don't have the big, round, bubbly muscles that bodybuilders have. You'll also see it with people that are vegans and vegetarians. They don't eat much protein. Even if they supplement protein, it's not always the most high quality protein. So when you're not getting enough essential amino acids in, the body starts burning up and cannibalizing its own muscle tissue. So you get skinny fat as well. And it's the same thing with the carnivore diet too. You'll see guys that'll do carnivore and they just get flat looking. It's the same thing as keto. You're not eating any carbs, so there's no reason for glycogen to stay full. Your glycogen gets depleted. So the goal here is we want to trick the system. Now remember, I don't particularly have a problem with keto or with carnivore or being a vegan. It's or vegetarian. It's whatever floats your boat and whatever you're trying to do to maximize your lifestyle. But for bodybuilding and for physique enhancement, we want to maximize glycogen storage and stay full looking. And you have to eat carbs to do that. There's just no two ways around it. So this is where carb cycling, I think, to me, out of all the diets that I've tried, and I think carb cycling is the best at doing that. So what carb cycling does is tricks the system, and it does it without violating thermodynamics. People think you're violating thermodynamics by having these super high carb days. We manipulate body composition through macro manipulation. So, for example, on the high day, we're going to push the carbohydrates super high and keep the fats low, and that will refill glycogen and keep us nice and full. And then on the other days, we'll pull carbs back down a little bit and go into a fat burning state. So the goal of the high days is to refill the glycogen and give a metabolic boost. The medium days is enough carbs to fuel the workouts and to be in a deficit, and the same thing with low days. They're medium days, but they factor in the lower calorie expenditure since we're not training. Low days are done on non-training days. So, it might be another 400 or 500 calories less since we're not weight training on those days. We're not expending as much energy on those days. So we pull the calories down even further. I don't know why a lot of diets don't do that. They don't adjust the calories down on the non-training days. It makes no sense to me. If you're not training, you don't need as many carbs. It's that simple. So here's an example of what a carb cycling diet would look like for fat loss. So let's assume that a bodybuilder has a base metabolism of around 3,000 calories. And if you ran a 1,000 calorie deficit for 6 days, that would be about 6,000 total calories in a deficit in a week's time. That would put us around 2 pounds of weight loss per week. Not quite, just a hair under 2 pounds of fat loss in a week if we're burning all fat. And we talked about the ways we're going to do that. We're going to do that through probably calorie reduction, increased energy expenditure, and the use of thermogenic drugs. So the weight training during that time when we're, on the low and medium days, we're probably going to burn through a fair amount of glycogen. You start getting a little flat towards the end. And you'll see it with a lot of guys that diet hard. I saw it in the show that I was in this past weekend. And I don't want to slam contest prep guys too much, but I saw a lot of dudes that were just super flat and stringy on stage. And I think that's because their coaches are over dieting them and overdoing the cardio and not keeping them nice and full with carbohydrates, and they just end up stringy and whatnot on stage, and they're probably running some silly diets, and it just makes them look awful. To me, it's the opposite of what you want to look like on stage. So, there's just not enough carbs to refill glycogen with a diet like that. So we hit the high day with this hypothetical bodybuilder, and a large bodybuilder, like me, there were some high days this year where on my prep that I was up over 1,500 grams of carbs with a cheat meal. Maybe in excess of it. There was a few. Justin told me to eat as many carbs as I could fucking eat, and 1,500 grams was about my limit. That was about the most I could put down. I think there was a couple times I pushed a little higher than that. And so, that's pretty crazy when you think about it. A large bodybuilder can hold that much. We're talking about 4,000 to 6,000 calories worth of carbohydrates that a large bodybuilder can store in glycogen. That is pretty significant. And the amount of water that glycogen pulls into the muscle with it is also significant. That's why you get better pumps. That's why you feel full. That's why you look more bubbly. So what we do, we'll run 6 medium and low days through that period of time where we're burning fat. And then on the high day, we'll run our high carb day. And during that high carb day, typically what we're going to do is keep the protein moderate. I usually reduce it down to somewhere around 0.7 grams per pound of body weight, 0.8, somewhere around there, which is through studies is kind of the minimum that you need for muscle protein synthesis that have been found in studies. And you got to remember, when we're eating a shit ton of carbs and we're taking insulin on these high days, which I do take insulin on my high days most of the time. Towards the end of prep, I had to stop because I was going hypo. But insulin and carbs are muscle sparing, so you don't need much protein on those days. So we're tilting the macros towards carbs. We're also going to keep our fat as close to zero as we possibly can on those days. I usually eat just chicken and cod for my protein sources to keep the fat as low. Chicken breast. I want to make that clear. I've had a few of my clients tell me, Coach, I'm eating chicken. I'm not losing weight. I don't understand why. And then I go back and look at their diet and they're eating goddamn chicken thighs, which are crazy amounts of fat in it. Anyway, little side tangent there. So anyway, we keep the fat low because when we have a high amount of carbs, the body preferentially wants to burn carbs for energy. And if we have a high amount of carbs, the body doesn't need that fat for energy. So what is it going to do with it? It's just going to store it, especially if you're using insulin. So we keep the fat as low as possible. We push the carbs as high as we can handle. Keep the protein at a moderate level, and the idea is that we're going to fill our glycogen back up and give us that nice, full, bubbly look that the judges love on stage. It gives you better performance in the gym. You're going to feel pumps. So that is the idea, and we're not violating thermodynamics. So you think, how can you eat 7,000 calories on a high day and still lose body fat and not gain any fat? The reason we're doing it is because we haven't violated thermodynamics. We haven't violated calories in and calories out. We're just storing those calories. Those calories are just being stored as glycogen. And also the high days, I'll notice that they give my metabolism a kick. Sometimes my fat loss will slow down. You can see, if you go through and look at my logs, my training logs from the contest prep, you can see it on the high days. I'll have a spike in weight afterwards, and then my fat loss just accelerates afterwards, and then it kind of slows down again before the high days. So it gives the metabolism a kick, gives the metabolism a boost. It keeps the fat loss momentum going, and it keeps your training good. Training sucks when you start to get really depleted and you don't have any carbs in you. Training is awful. I don't know how these keto guys train. I guess they just, if you're in ketosis long enough, you just adapt to it. But when I'm in a carb depleted state, my training sucks. I don't get any pumps. I feel flat. I hate my workouts. And also the psychology of it. When you're on a diet and there's the diet fatigue, the mental aspect of diet fatigue when you're going through contest prep, you're like, oh my God, I can't take another week of this shit. I gotta have some food. I'm gonna fucking die. I gotta have some food. With the carb cycling, you only have to make it 6 days, and really it doesn't really, after the high day you feel good. So it's usually like a couple days before the high day I'll really start to feel it, but all I have to do is tell myself I only need to make it 2 more days, and then I'm going to be eating Captain Crunch and gummy bears, and I'm going to have a cheat meal at the end of the day. So psychologically it is advantageous for a diet to do it this way. It really makes dieting a lot easier. All right, guys, that's it in a nutshell with carb cycling for fat loss. I'm going to do another one on carb cycling for muscle building. I have some other carb cycling videos up. I kind of went back through and redid this one, tried to make it a little more concise. But let me know in the comments section below if you have any questions about carb cycling. I do want to let you guys know that I am going to be relaunching my website here in a couple weeks. I got some exciting things coming up. I'm going to be introducing some cool new stuff probably here in the next month or two. I'm going to have some self-study courses and some programs coming out where you can teach yourself how to do cuts and how to do bulks. I am also going to probably introduce a community. Just doing a bunch of new exciting things that's coming. I will let you know that I'm kind of getting to my limit of what I can handle for coaching clients. I've told people I'm going to raise my prices But I don't know. I may pump the brakes and stop taking coaching clients here soon. I don't know that I can handle many more. So if you want to get in with coaching, do it now. I'm not saying this for a fucking marketing thing. I'm at my limit, and I want to make sure that I am providing good service for everybody that I'm working with. So I am going to cap myself on how many clients I'm taking on, and I'm only a couple people away from that cap right now. So if you want to get in on the coaching, do it now before I fill up, because I'm probably going to push the pause button for a little while and focus on building out my website and focus on building out some of these other programs to make things more accessible for the rest of you. These are going to be cheaper programs, self-study programs that are going to be available for everyone. All right, guys. Thank you for watching my video. Take care. For coaching or consultations, head over to www.anabolicbodybuilding.com to book your spot today. I can help you with optimizing hormones, fat loss, muscle gain, physique, athletic performance, nutrition, and health. For more information, shoot me an email at bigp3rd@gmail.com.